But
Mm.
it Meeting to order, 7 p.m. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. All right, this is being recorded live for CNET's YouTube channel. Next up is public comments for anybody that wishes to comment anything on or off the agenda. Do I have anybody that wants to talk? Yes, no, maybe.
Is it acceptable just to make an announcement?
Sure can.
Okay.
Just give us your name there for the listening audience.
My name is Cliff Neal, 386 Chenelly Drive, and I represent Port Matilda EMS, actually. I just wanted people to be aware that on the 21st of this month at the Way Fruit Farm, we're going to have all the first responders for the area down there, and if people would have an interest in talking with them individually or looking at equipment and getting some questions answered, we're going to have Port Matilda Fire, Port Matilda EMS, Pennsylvania State Police, the Forestry Service, Game Warden, Search and Rescue, and hopefully if they can get there, a helicopter will be coming too. So just an opportunity to experience first responders and see if you had questions, they can get them answered. September 21st, and it's 11 in the morning until 1 in the afternoon. People may stay later, but that's the primary time, is that 2-hour frame.
Okay.
That's during one of their festivals, right?
It's first responder festival of them.
At Ways.
Yeah, that at Way Fruit Farm.
Yeah.
What's the time, Cliff?
11 in the morning until 1 in the afternoon is the primary time, and people were told they can come earlier and stay later. It's just a matter of that's when I was told that would be the predominant amount of people coming through.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I don't think anything's gone out on from the township on that, right?
No,
In any of our emails or anything, yeah. Cliff, do you have something that you can send to Amy to send out to the email listserv?
It's on the, do you have Way Fruit Farm on Facebook?
I can look it up.
Jason, that's the
Okay,
only thing.
it's on Way Fruit
Jason-
Farms, okay.
Okay. Thanks.
Anybody else? Okay. Next up, approval of the minutes. This is B for August the 8th, 2024, Supervisors meeting. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion by the board? Comments, questions, spelling? Okay, call for the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? All right, next up, consent agenda. This would be the general fund, the amount of $33,193.17. A bill, highway liquid fuels fund, the amount of $5,483.86. Ratification of the bills list from 8/20/2024 to 9/9/2024. In the general fund amounting to $34,279.45. Establishing trick or treat night, October 31st from 6 to 8 p.m. with an inclement weather date of Friday, November 1st of 2024. Permission to advertise employee wage meeting for September 20th, 12 p.m. Permission to advertise fiscal year 2025 budget meeting dates. And acknowledge the resignation of Tom Neff as part-time seasonal worker. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion by the board? Call for the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Approved. Next up, A1 zoning district and subdivision and land development saldo RPD amendments. And I'll turn that over to planning.
Sure, we got some comments back from the county, just to add some definitions. We added the definition for dog training facility, commercial cemeteries, and ag-related businesses. But other than that, everything is the same as you saw it, I believe, in the July meeting.
Okay, do I hear a motion to forward these changes on to the solicitor?
So moved.
And I think Tammy might have beat you. Or-
No, actually, I have a question, but go ahead.
Okay, so we got a
You can
motion.
move.
We have a second.
Yeah, I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. Okay, discussion, questions by the board.
Yeah, you mentioned for dog training facilities, am I missing that in this text, in this letter here?
Yes, this was actually sent out. We didn't have that part in there.
Okay.
But that was just added. We can Do you have that, we can pull that up, Amy, exactly what we put in?
In the A1?
Yeah,
Or the definition?
the definition. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, just how it's worded in there.
Oh.
Dog training facility.
Yeah, because is it specific to training facilities? And where I'm going with this question is, ordinances related to dog kennels.
We have a separate definition for
Separate
dog
one.
kennel as well.
Okay.
So kennels and that's one thing we did separate out of the definition, because originally it was in there as well.
Right, okay.
Is the dog training facility still 3 acre minimum lot size and?
That's what it, did we up?
Because is it just can you just read that, Amy, real quick, on facility providing such
fac-
services?
there
Okay.
And we do allow for overnight boarding, but that's just for a training. That's not indefinite, and it has to be
1 month or
1
less?
month within a time frame.
You might want to specify training boarding, because one could take that as
We can add that in.
boarding, just boarding.
Sure.
Yeah.
Where
And
are
that,
they?
and that clarifies what type of boarding.
Where are the definitions?
They're in the actual.
They're not in
They're,
this.
they're not in that. They're in the
They're-
beginning of the zoning chapter.
Okay. And these are
I'll
the
just make
changes?
a-
These are the changes, the additions that we
Alright.
put in. Yep.
And then we can
And
clean
then
that
for
up.
Mhm.
kennels, you got minimum lot size of 10 acres.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's also got, we have a definition for that in there.
There
It
is,
has not changed.
that did not change.
That has not changed. And has there been any discussion, I know there was a situation in the township a few months ago, and I know I talked to Amy on a couple of this, that there's been some situations come up where a dog boarding facility would like to come into the township. And there has been concerns about setbacks related to the actual kennel facilities in relation to neighbors' properties. The one example I'll give, the setbacks or the uses applied to those within a development, if you will, because the property was in the development. But where the kennel could have been located was actually closer to neighboring properties that were not within that development, as opposed, and so they had no say, and those were the ones most impacted. So where I'm going with this is we need to probably look at what those regulations are for dog boarding kennels, simply from a noise standpoint, safety standpoint, in terms of bordering properties. And if those kennels are placed in a corner or a area of the property that's, right next to a neighbor that has no say in it, that's gonna be an issue of contention. And so we probably need to look back in terms of setbacks
We
for
did
kennels from property lines and such.
We did go, and that is something that was in the original changes that we brought through. The changes for side and rear setbacks have been increased. They were, was
For
it
boarding kennels,
Well, for the entire district.
okay,
We don't have any specific to the kennels. We just have setbacks in general for the property use.
okay,
But we do have ag structures
Yeah.
that have to be 100 feet away from the side property line.
So, yeah. And manure is 300, manure storage or
Manure
new
and-
barn is
yeah,
300
300
feet from the
And
side.
that was originally in the ordinance. the
Yeah, we didn't
300
change
feet.
that,
okay,
but we did increase for rear and side from
Yeah.
15 and 15
Yeah.
to 50 and 75.
Yeah.
To be more in line with typical ag setbacks.
yeah, and just some of the feedback that I had gotten from people in terms of when this could have been an issue was, dog kennels, and I'm not opposed to boarding kennels by any means, I'm definitely a dog person, but I could see where if this comes in, it's a different entity than other agriculture entities, that are farming or have cattle or whatever, it's just a different type of activity, noise level, there's daily traffic in and out, there's dogs barking, and so we don't seem to have anything in place that, one, deals with traffic coming in and out of private driveways, especially if you have a shared driveway or driveways next to each other, or a driveway running up another neighbor's property, as well as to, sound barriers, whether it's vegetation in place or something to kind of minimize dog barking sounds, which certainly carry. And, if you've got a boarding kennel with 30 dogs right next to your property, that could have some very upset neighbors. And again, I don't wanna exclude boarding kennels, cause I think they're very much needed out this way, but I think we also need to be mindful of neighbors who may be next to an incoming boarding facility. So just some thoughts
Yep.
from feedback that I've gotten, so.
Yeah, we can definitely look into that.
Anyone, anything else?
I have a question with regard to limits. What limits are there placed on what restrictions can be imposed?
Are you talking in the realm
In
of
terms-
ag?
From the
or-
standpoint of ownership of the property, what are the limits imposed in terms of regulation?
I mean,
Or are there
that's
ag?
kind of specific to the use. I mean, I know if it's considered agriculture, Pennsylvania has the Right to Farm Act, which that states if you're over 10 acre, if you allow agriculture in the district and you have over 10 acres of ground, you can actively farm that. Whereas, it goes down to smaller acreage if you can prove that you profited more than 10 acres. Or 10,000, I'm sorry,
$10,000.
$10,000. So, and that's, limiting agriculture is difficult. You can
But
do it.
within this, there are other uses,
Mhm.
meaning dog kennels.
Yeah, we can limit by, you can change setbacks and things like that if you want to.
But how much can you do that?
You can
And
set
there's
them at
really
whatever you
no-
like.
No limit?
No, I
So you
mean,
get sued.
yeah, I mean, there could be legal ramifications at some point, which I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know what that would be, but
I mean, I can think of another thing, fireworks. You know, fireworks they affect animals, they affect, farm animals as well as domestic
Mhm.
animals. And, distance, there's been complaints about that and, but there's certain limits on what you can regulate.
yeah, I'm not familiar with a zoning ordinance that would deal with
And that's more of a
fireworks. I mean, they
nuisance
might have a
issue.
township ordinance that could do
That-
that on its own,
yeah.
but that would be a separate from
Yeah.
the zoning.
Yeah. Okay.
Anybody else?
Can I ask a question? Can
Make
you
it quick.
limit the amount of kennels that were on a piece of property? Like how many dog kennels that
I
you could have?
I think,
to-
and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's based on the acreage of the property,
I
I
know
think.
there are AEUs that are for like, I believe like farm animals, cattle and things like that, but I don't know if it goes, I'm not familiar enough with that to know.
Right, because it's odd, because that dog kennels fall within agriculture, but it's a totally different entity,
It
you
is.
know?
And I think the
Um,
Department of Ag regulates that somewhat, because
'Cause they
they
have
do
to be
the
licensed.
inspections, so they have to be licensed, so
Yeah.
the Department of Ag really,
Okay.
Yeah, and we'd have to look into that, but there might be something within the licensing that, if you have a 10-acre property, and again, it has to fall within the local ordinances in terms of what that building structure can be. But then I think based on their licensing and what they're able to build is the number of dogs that they're allowed to house. But
mean,
I could be
if
wrong
we-
on that, but I
If we had
think,
a local ordinance though, that could limit how many kennels
I
could be.
don't know if that would
You could do that.
supersede the licensing
A
regulation.
lot of times, we're not allowed to supersede what the state
Okay.
Yeah.
regulates.
So we'd have to look and see what the state licensing,
Yeah, however they would come
regulations
up, whether
are.
it's
Then
acreage
again-
or by animal or by weight or by.
Facility is gonna
Yeah.
determine, the size of the facility is dependent on how many animals you have, and then the size of the facility is governed by, building code and
Well, and the way
setbacks and
we
et
could handle
cetera.
that well as the setbacks are the biggest way in zoning.
It's gonna end
to
up
handle
being
that.
a bigger property for a larger number of
The
animals.
state also regulates or requires manure management plans when so many animals are on a property, so it's not just dogs in general, so.
And we're talking about a commercial operation, not
Mhm.
a private
Yeah, not somebody. who
guy
sends a
owns,
bunch of
they're all
dogs.
his dogs or her dogs.
yeah, not
or
if it's
whatever.
hunting dogs or something like that,
Right.
yeah.
So that's governed, that's regulated.
Anybody else? All right, call for the question to send it on to the solicitor. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye?
Aye. Opposed? Approved. I think you're free to escape. Okay, next up, real estate tax collection system change. And Brett, you just want to give us a 50-second deal on that?
So, in February of this year, the county had reached out to every tax collector stating that in 2025, the county was beginning They're changed to a new tax collection software. They had been using RBA, Professional Data Services. Now they're using a company called Government Software Services Incorporated. We've spent most of the year doing different demos, having questions answered, just kind of making sure the logistics works out. I feel we have pretty much a good handle on it at this point, and how it's going to affect this township is it'll be about $600 more a year as far as cost. But what it also does is it cuts down staff time. In years past, we have to stuff the bills. From now on, GSS sends the bills, the reminders. Pretty much we just do the collecting at this point. The biggest effect, I would say, is the change of the bill. I did bring the copies tonight. This is what your tax bill is going to look like closed from now on. It does resemble junk mail. That's the only concerning part. And then this is what it looks like open. I would definitely recommend telling friends, neighbors, anyone within the township or even the county, because it's county-wide, this is what your tax bill is going to look like, unless the township decides to part ways with the county and create a third tax bill. I feel that would cause even more confusion than just the change in the look of the bill. I feel we could get more people to understand the bill's going to change its look than that they're going to receive a third bill just from the township.
When does this go into effect?
It will be next year, so in March of 2025, this is what your tax bill will look like.
Okay.
Any other questions by the board?
Well, is there something that we can do again, you know, on the Facebook page, website, email, in terms of sending out notices to people with
County
these, like
actually
maybe in a.
provided a QR code that
Okay.
once I announced it and the board said they were going with it, we're gonna stick on Facebook.
Okay, great. That way
So-
it would maybe have a link so that people see this in a PDF or something like
Yep,
that.
Yep, we're gonna try and get it out as much as we can over
Yeah.
the last so many months, hopefully.
It's a significant change. We
Yeah.
don't want people throwing their tax bills away.
Correct.
No. I hear a motion to approve changing the tax service.
So-
Tammy moved. How about a second? Ron? Ron seconded. Any other discussion by the board? Call for the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. You know what to do, Brett.
Yep,
Thank you, Brett.
no problem.
Upper Bald Eagle Half Moon Cog Municipal Contribution Requests. And what they're looking to do is pay $28,700 out of tax-funded municipal contributions to fund half the engine replacement cost for the 2002 Pierce Arrow tanker. And Ron, if you just want to give a brief rundown on that.
Well, we had discussion at the COG meeting about the cost. There were bids. They broke down some of the costs because I think there's a core that they bought, and that reduces the cost on as a line item to the total cost to replace the engine. So it was discussed at length, and finally, after discussion, it was decided that both the fire company and the COG would split the cost evenly. So that's what we agreed to at the COG. Now, because it's over $10,000, the municipal boards, all 5 municipal boards, have to approve the expenditure, like similar to what we're discussing tonight. So,
Okay. Do I hear a motion?
I move that we approve
Okay.
this.
Second.
Ron moved, Tammy second. Any other discussion by the board? Call for the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion approved. All right, next up, residual ARPA funds disbursements. And Brett, do you know how much is in there?
Yep, I have a little spiel here if you're ready.
Okay, go for it.
So, as per the federal guidelines, as we've discussed in the past, we have to obligate all the funds by December 31st of this year and spend them by December 31st of 2026. I feel the easiest thing to do would be to just spend everything by the end of this year. We can close out our books, I can report next April, and then we're done. So what the board had planned with their 2024 budget was to spend all $307,000 is what we quoted the road projects at. They ended up being bid at $285 and coming in at $277,000, so we came in under. Now, the township received $297,465.42 of ARPA money. So once you remove the GOH, as well as add a little bit of interest from the year, we were sitting still at $39,583.26. That is your to-date fund balance. Now, the caveat with that is, any interest that we made on the account is unrestricted. It is just money. The federal government doesn't care what we do with it. There's absolutely no restriction to it. So we have two mini pots that create this $39,000. One is $20,419.16. That is what's left of the restricted money. That's the money the federal government's going to care how we spend it. Then there's $19,164.10 that's unrestricted, and that can be spent any way the board so chooses. So prior to this meeting, I began picking brains, trying to figure out what kind of research we may have to do to prepare for this meeting. The general consensus were a few areas: emergency services, the park fund transfer, and then a few projects that were around the township, just with the theme being to stay in the township. So the project that came up the most was the outside of this building getting a new siding. However, after staff discussed it this past week, we've decided that project has no set number. Once you tear that off, you are not sure what is going under, as well as it was already in this year's budget under capital reserve. So,
Excuse me, Brett, let me interrupt a second. You're speaking about the unrestricted funds.
for right now, I'm just speaking period.
Okay,
Because any project we have listed could fall under either.
okay.
There's
Gotcha.
there's nothing being suggested that could not fall under anything.
Okay.
So, I sat down with the Public Works, and what they explained to me is that our one mower, the reason we're down to one mower is, it's been said at a couple different meetings, is because the oldest mower is due to blow up. It's on its last leg. So we're back in the same boat we were in a year and a half ago. Do we redo the engine or do we buy new? The general consensus is, based on the life of that as well as the feasibility of how it's being used, buying new was the best option, and buying a more commercial model that'll give you a longer life and hopefully more durability. That quote came in at $15,199. As well as, it also was brought to the attention of the staff at using the Smith Road project, that the backhoe could really use a mirror strobe kit for safety purposes. When they're out and about, especially on Smith Road, safety's key. We don't need anyone getting clipped by cars or anyone getting hurt or any of that. That quote was $1,414.10. So what staff is recommending is that the board consider purchasing those two and then dividing the remaining funds amongst the emergency services however they see fit. Whether that's equally percentage portioned, whatever the case may be. That number cannot be officially decided because what we have to do is close out the ARPA fund, and we will receive a little more residual interest, which will make that number increase a little bit. So if the board does follow staff's recommendation, it will basically have to be the motion of approving these two purchases, and then the residual gets split however, once I know that total. If that all makes sense.
I would move that we take care of the equipment, buy the equipment, and take the remaining amount, which is the majority amount, and divide it
should be,
equally
yes.
among the three emergency services.
Evenly, or?
Can you specify which three emergency services that you're referring to?
Port Matilda EMS, Port Matilda Fire Company, and Warriors Mark Fire Company.
I will second that motion.
Moved and seconded. Discussion by the board. It works for me.
Get her done.
All right, call for the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Approved.
Thank you, Brett, I really appreciate those
Yep.
suggestions.
Okay, that's taken care of. Next up, sale of the 2002 Sterling truck. And I know we made a motion last month, but some of the people had discussed maybe we ought to just put it on municipal bid and see what happens. So somebody from, Chuck, you wanna take this, or?
I certainly can. I mean, you definitely summed it up. Just upon further discussion, felt that it was just a better move to go ahead and sell that truck via the municipal bid option to cover a lot of different advertising restrictions and things like that. And so that's just basically, I'm bringing it in front of the board again and looking for
Okay.
options.
Tammy made the motion, do I hear a second?
Second.
Moved and second, any discussion by the board? Call for the question, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, go on to municipal bid. Support letter for community solar. Who wants to deal with that?
Well, we discussed this at general forum, the last general forum meeting. We discussed this at, well, it would have been executive committee as well. But the bottom line is there were two actions taken. One was a request for COG, Center Region Council of Governments, to send a letter to Senator Langerholk, I believe it is, asking him to support community solar. There was a second motion, which was to send a recommendation to all 6 municipalities, for asking them to send a letter in support of community solar. I don't have a problem with us sending a letter, so.
Community solar, what do you mean by community
Well,
solar?
there's a provision that allows for, this is what they're trying to get approved, is for residents to be able to enter into a community solar agreement where in certain cases, certain residences are not, kind of don't qualify or don't work in terms of being able to install solar panels on their homes because of exposure to the sun or whatever.
Okay.
So this allows them to participate in solar power without having to actually, in the case where they can't install something on their homes because it won't work, it allows them to still participate. So you might have several neighbors getting together and create or building a community solar array.
In their front yards.
And there's certain, and the state, I believe I don't know if there's funding or if there's, I think it probably results in funding available for these kinds of applications. So that's what it was all about. And the letter from the COG already went out. So.
All right. Well, does anybody want to do that?
Sure, I mean, it's no skin off our back, right?
No,
It's just a
not
matter
really.
of support if residents wanna take advantage of this opportunity. I mean, is there downside to this?
Now, I actually felt as though this was something that should be within the realm of local municipal boards sending a request or a recommendation or an endorsement to the higher level legislature. I thought that was appropriate. I actually didn't think the COG should be sending such a letter, but the majority felt that was the right thing to do. So I don't really have a problem with it at this point. I think it's just one more proclamation or one more endorsement.
Yeah, it's just a letter of support, so,
Yeah.
I'll
I
move.
personally don't know enough about it. The only thing, in Warriors Mark Township, we just went and adopted a solar ordinance for commercial solar, and I mean, there's people that are upset about a potential commercial solar operation out there. People get upset about a lot of things, but
Yeah.
I could see where, maybe a couple neighbors get together and they say, well, we're gonna run a solar array here, and that's okay, but I could just see where the neighborhood's gonna go with it. You know, other
Well, I'm
people
sure
are-
there are gonna be restrictions on it,
Yeah.
but
Well, and it's not like any neighbor can just put up a solar panel in their yard, they can do it on their roof.
Yeah.
Which I think this is probably what this would be, referring to, is individuals and residents who get together and maybe collectively put it on their roofs. Again, no harm done there.
well, what it tries
Not
to
a
accommodate
roof.
is people that can't, because of where they live, solar panels don't work because of they don't have enough exposure or whatever, so
Right.
they get together and they maybe put it on one person's property where they have optimal exposure, and then they can share in that. And that somehow, I think there's some kind of a tax advantage or something involved with it. I mean, I think people are actually already doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I know there's individuals in the township and across the state, I know people that have put in their own. And then, of course, they're generating more power than what they're using, so they're selling it. So I can see where, if I'm the one sunny house and everybody else is in the shade, put solar on me and then give everybody else the benefits.
This allows them to share
Yeah.
between
They would all help
properties.
pay
Yeah.
for the panels, I
But
Yeah,
guess.
yeah.
I don't really
I'll
care.
move it, I'll move, yeah.
Okay.
So moved.
Moved and, Ron, were you second?
I guess.
Moved and seconded. Any other discussion by the board?
Just another government thing.
Yeah, I'm a little nervous about it. I
don't know
mean,
that
I'm
it's gonna go
okay.
anywhere, so.
Hey, we
Well,
can
so
go
here's
if
the
you want
thing.
to. I don't.
You just brought this up a little bit ago. You're gonna put a dog kennel there and people's gonna bitch because of the dog kennel. Well, if 5 people get together and they're my neighbors and they decide they're gonna put a panel up in their backyard and I gotta look at it,
Well, I think that's what I was saying earlier, is not everybody can just put a panel in their yard. So that's a whole different regulation.
That's what Ron
But they
is
can put
saying.
them on the roof.
Right, but there's also the law of unintended consequences. So when people think it may be a good idea, but the impact of it may be unknown. I mean, it's just, what I do on my own property on top of my house or in my yard it's one thing, but when I don't know how big this could be. This could be 10 houses or 20 houses as far as I can tell. I mean, I don't know as much about it as the people who actually presented this and suggested this. So, and I don't really know the full ramifications of it either.
Do we have a sample letter or something that we're looking at, or are we gonna write our own?
Pam
It-
provided a sample letter.
Does it say anything just about roof mounted, or does it
No.
say, doesn't say?
It's just a
No, it's
letter in
just a
support, and
supporting-
we can accept it or reject it. Frankly, I don't think it's gonna matter much.
And most solar goes on the roof for
Yeah, well,
accessibility to,
I would,
most
I
of
would
it.
be agreeable to it as long as it's roof mounted and not,
We don't know that. It could be it could be ground mounted. It
Yep.
could be a solar array on the ground.
Can it be an open space on a development?
we don't know.
No,
Well, I think that would be prohibited.
Depends
with
on how you
most
define open space.
Uses, yeah,
Yeah,
I guess it all
that would
depends
be a
on
prohibited
ordinances.
use of open space.
Yeah, cause it would no longer be open space then.
I think maybe the best thing to do is just to stay neutral on the subject and just let it, just let it pass. Let the other, COG has already spoken on behalf of all 6 municipalities by sending that letter. And that's what I objected to, because I prefer that municipalities speak for themselves and not have an agency speak on behalf of those municipalities that are not necessarily in the room when they make these decisions. So that's the difference between a municipal board and an agency. So,
I would support it if you care to amend your motion to just have it be for roof mounted solar only.
Will do, so moved.
Okay, Ron, you still okay with the second?
I don't see how that changes the status quo of what people can do right now. And not knowing fully what this all implies or what it means, I mean, I'd rather not make a motion or even a second.
All right, well, I guess we
Well,
can,
you did second it already, so we have that on the table.
But then there was a question about it, and, I withdraw my second because of that. There was concern expressed about it, which I think is legitimate, and I had not thought about that, so.
would we like to, board take a closer look at it and bring it up next month?
Works for me.
Everybody
All right,
okay
we
with
can
that?
do that. But I think I'm gonna have to go to the COG and ask them to provide more information on what the full intent of
If
this
you can
thing,
get
what
that
this
for us,
actually accomplished,
I
and what the program is about.
Want to make sure we're not opening a can of worms that, you know, changes the entire flavor
Right, we
of
just,
it.
well, and what do we need to do? We have a motion and a second on the table.
Well, we have to
rescind them
withdraw the
both?
motion in a second. so-
Withdraw, okay,
I withdraw my second.
Okay. so-
withdraw.
All right, and then we'll see if we can get some more information for the board next month.
I have a question
Yes,
about this. When it says community solar, is this restricted to residential use?
we don't know that
You
either.
don't know.
Well, it does say give
I think
residents,
it is.
according to this letter that we have that explains the project, it does say community solar projects give residents and business owners the choice to
you go.
subscribe to a local solar installation. That's,
Like a
it
farmland.
could be bigger, but
Yeah.
That could proliferate into something
it's
beyond
not
our imagining.
very well defined, I will say that.
So let's get to the bottom of it and then just talk about it again next month. I
Works
think
for
it's
me.
the best thing to
Sounds
do.
good.
All right?
Okay, township reports, treasurers, secretaries, or roadmaster, you guys got anything for us? Anything special? Okay. Any committee reports we need to hear about?
I'll just say the HR committee has not met. A number of the meetings have been canceled for lack of agenda items. And currently, the executive committee, we've had 2 of 3 budget meetings. We have a next budget meeting is Tuesday. Those are aired and recorded via CNET. And then we'll have our official meeting Thursday next week.
Okay, thank you.
That's the finance committee budget.
Finance committee, yes, sorry. Did I
And then
miss-
you
did
have
I
your
misspeak?
finance committee meeting Thursday?
Finance.
That's a summary of the,
Finance, right, so we've had 2 budget meetings this week, we have a 3rd budget meeting Tuesday. Our summary meeting, which is our regular meeting, will be Thursday
yeah, and then
next
the
week.
executive committee's right after that.
Yes, and then we have general forum.
It got moved from Tuesday to Thursday, the executive committee.
Right
because-
after our meeting on
Yes,
Thursday.
because of the budget meetings, yeah.
Okay,
Thank you. Anybody else? About a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved and seconded. Call for the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned, 7:36. Thank you all for coming.